afternoon, Chicago. Welcome to another edition of On the Scene with DL. Guess what? I'm DL. Joining me in the studio today, I'm got a co-host today. Yeah. I'm really excited about Chicago. The lovely Griffin. I got Chantel Schuber in the studio, co-editor at Scene Chicago magazine. And some people just don't need an introduction, but we got Dominick Izzo in the building with us. He's running for Cook County Sheriff here in Chicago. And some guy down at the end, Marcus Paul, you in the building with us?
Yes, sir.
Cool beans. I want to give a shout out to iHeartRadio, Intellectual Radio, and our lovely sponsors, our great sponsors. We got to give a mad shout out to Buffalo Wild Wings. Give much love and respect to McDonald's. We're going to give a little love to Scene Chicago. Guess what? Yeah, we got to give Scene Chicago a little bit of love. And My Chocolate Soul, 4442 North Broadway here in Chicago for the best chocolate. My Chocolate Soul. One last sponsor, G-Line Clothing. He's in the building and for great clothing and all that other cool stuff. And I'm going to turn the mic over. I'm just honored and blessed. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Kaylee. And Kaylee, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and tell me what's going on.
Yeah. My name is Kaylee Griffin. I'm a student at DePaul University, AUW, in Greencastle, Indiana.
Not DePaul University, but DePaul.
DePaul, yeah.
Make sure they know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
AUW. And I'm in our honors journalism program at the school, the Media Fellows program, which is what really got me into journalism.
High five. You can look this way. Don't worry about it. You can look this way.
And I started with television. So I auditioned to be our news anchor. And then I had that position. And then I transitioned to news director. And this year I recently won the 2018 Indiana Broadcasters Award.
You didn't tell me about that?
Yeah. So
come on.
Yeah.
Congratulations, young lady. Another high five up top. Cool beans.
And for print journalism, I write for Her Campus, which is the national online college magazine for women. Sure. And then also our school paper. So, yeah.
Chantel Chuba, you're in the building. Tell us who you are and what you do. And
hey, everyone. I'm Chantel Chuba. I am a co-editor at Scene Chicago TV. I've been in Chicago for 3 years now. I'm from Detroit. And
much love to the D.
I just graduated with my master's in New Arts Journalism from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And, yeah, I got my undergrad at Albion in art history. That's it. I'm a writer. I write for Scene Chicago for my column. Bi-weekly, I write about pop culture and relationships.
That's some cool stuff. I'm gonna bounce outside for a second, if you don't mind, Dominick, and get and introduce Marcus Paul. Yes, Wayne Marcus Paul or Marcus Paul. Tell me who you are, what you doing. What makes you tick?
Marcus Paul works. That's cool. Yeah. So I'm also a co-editor with Chantel at Scene Chicago TV. Currently, I'm at Columbia. Got a year left right now, Columbia College, studying multimedia journalism. So, you know, that's all fun and good.
Cool beans. And I'm honored to have this handsome gentleman in the studio with me today. I'm gonna turn the mic over to Dominick Izzo. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm the one who's honored. I'm Dominick Izzo. I'm a former police officer, and I'm your candidate for Cook County Sheriff for this election for this November 2018.
What? Tell us about that. I mean, tell us about the election. We know it's in November. Kaylee, you got any questions? I'm sorry, Chicago. I got a co-host today, and she's riding shotgun.
I came to get grilled. I came to get. You came to get grilled. I came to get grilled and torn apart. So you better lay it on me.
If
you got people watching.
Yeah, it's just, what's your interest in running for sheriff?
Idealism. I'm one of those guys that I did that job being a peace officer, and I love the Constitution. I love that concept of serving the public. I love knowing that at the very minimal, you call 911 and we show up. I even love the fact that I could drive down the street and you could walk out your house and go hi, and I could wave back. I love public service. I love it. Several years ago, I started a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, and it went viral, and I had all this good fortune happen to me. And everyone said, well, if you believe so badly about bridging the gap between the police and the public, put your money where your mouth is and run for sheriff. It was a more or less along lines of a public challenge. Now, to say, well, you believe in this, do something. Show it. Do something. Stop talking about it. Do something about it. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be a catalyst for change.
And you mentioned changing the relationship between the public and police. What is something that you want to implement?
We have to get back to Mayberry. We need to return the United States to being one big Mayberry, where your law enforcement returns to the concept of being in the community. There was Sir Robert Peel. He's accredited for coming up with the 9 principles of modern policing. And number 7, if you paraphrase it, there's a line in there that says the police are the public and the public are the police. Last time I checked, I was a citizen between ages 0 and 26. Then I was a cop. And then for a little while, I took some time off, and then I became a cop again. Now I'm not a cop again. I'm a citizen again. You're always, if you're a cop, you're always part of the citizens. So you live in that. You are one of the community. You have to go back to being it. So everybody has to come to the table, and they have to start bridging this gap together again.
And what is one of the biggest challenges facing Chicago or Cook County today?
The system, one of, or the laundry list of. The political system in itself, Chicago did not invent corruption, but I'll be damned if they didn't perfect it. They absolutely
did. He say damn on the radio?
That's not an FCC violation, is it?
Okay.
They absolutely perfected it. It is geared towards people with money. You are groomed for politics, and you are brought in through among the ranks. And it is money. Money rules this game huge. And people are not a fan. The system is not a fan of me because I support idealism and I don't play their game. So it's one of the problems that we're running into the most. Mm-hmm.
And have you received support so far in running for sheriff?
Absolutely not the way you'd think. I have the reverse problem of what my other candidate, any candidate anywhere. So I'm not known very well in my community, but I'm known nationwide because of social media. Everybody else are known in the area. They're not known anywhere else. I have a huge nationwide following, and actually I have an international following. But when it comes down to Chicago, Cook County, I still have people going, "Who are you? Who are you?" The support is behind the scenes. The amount of support that people want to throw at us, both publicly, monetarily wise, everybody keeps saying the same thing. I want to support you, but you're not on the ballot yet because I'm running as an independent. And I'm afraid that if I do come out and publicly support you, our businesses could be jeopardized. Our personally could be jeopardized. We don't want so-and-so coming after us to show your support.
Chicago politics coming into play. That's pretty much what you're saying.
People are afraid of support. But it's the support is there. It's just behind the scenes.
And because you identify as an independent, do you not believe that politics should be involved in this election?
Not in your sheriff's race, not in your law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Never once have I ever, you've called 911, I show up at your door and go, "Ooh, miss, you're a Democrat.
Republican? Are you a Democrat?
I can't take your barking dog call complaint because you don't align with the party I affiliate with." So no. Okay. No, I don't think it should be affiliated. I don't think that your sheriff should be, any law enforcement should pick a side.
I agree. I agree with you, Harley. I had the pleasure of meeting another law enforcement and peace officer a couple of weeks ago. His name was Mark Sneddles, former professional baseball player. I met this handsome gentleman, Dominick Izzo, and he came out yesterday. He came out and helped us out and supported the kids. His presence was definitely felt and sorely needed. I mean, I think in Chicago, there has to be a bridge where people, I'm not just going to say people of color, I'm just going to say people need to see that police officers are people too, and they do the right thing. They need to see good people like you out here in the streets doing what you do, serving the public, and also, changing that perception, so to speak. Now, I'm going to ask you two guys, Chantal, because you're sitting there. What are you thinking about this conversation? What are you thinking about politics, policing, and from a journalistic perspective, what's your spin on it? What do you think about this?
Yeah, so this whole thing with the cops and the bridging the gap between the police and the public that we're talking about, I sort of want to hear specific things that we could be implementing. Like, how are we fixing the public's perception on alleged police abuse? What are some concrete, specific things that we can use?
The number one thing is you have to be education, because you're going to have to come up with when you start talking about police brutality or fixing a problem, it's always going to be stemmed from a place from emotion. We're going to turn on our Facebooks. We're going to see through a feed, and we're going to see, and I don't mince words, we're going to see a black subject interacting with police, and emotions are so heightened, and that spreads out to everyone. And we all go, we need to fix this problem. We need to fix this problem. And the easiest entity to attribute the solution to is going to be the ones who are paid, because the public is supposed to be able to do what they want. If you're paying for a service, if your taxes are going somewhere, well, then you want law enforcement held accountable. So that's where the onus is going to go on them first. I flip that coin and say, okay, well, you know what? Law enforcement is going to wind up going to correct the problem, but that's going to have to be through education. So first I have to let you know what I do. So, and there's no other way of saying educating wise. And I will use, for example, Laquan McDonald shooting. And can we all agree that we didn't like the shooting?
Uh-oh.
Okay, so we didn't like that shooting, right? Now I'm gonna be factual and I'm gonna be emotional because there's two sides because we're dynamic. We're dynamic human beings, right?
I like that. I like that. I like that concept.
So I can give you both because again, I was a police and I'm public. So Robert Peel, right? Both in there. As a cop at the time when the shooting came out, I was very public that I said I didn't agree with the shooting. Emotionally, I didn't like it. The tactics, I didn't like it. Now you got thousands of police officers, 1.1 million police officers out there in the nation. And we all think differently. We all think creatively. Everybody's got their own perception on something. Lawfully, it was by definition, the way that we saw it at the time, what it calls a good shoot, right? Emotionally,
it's a good shoot.
Good shoot. Well, and we only call it a good shoot.
Mic check.
Because we only call it a good shoot because it's a good shoot or bad shoot. That's how the law enforcement terms it. If the public had information, I spoke to Marcus's father about this. You remember Pat Camden?
Absolutely.
See, years ago there was a man on TV who came on 2579, all the news channels. His name was Pat Camden, and he was Chicago. He was a Chicago liaison for the media. He used to come out and if there's a shooting, all right, this is what we have tonight. We have with this information. He gave information out. Well, if the city of Chicago had just given out some sort of information to begin with, it would have de-escalated flames a little bit. If we educate you, if I can tell you off the bat, now I'm assuming that you don't, I'm going to pick on you for a second. Sure. You probably emotionally, do you agree that a person who does not have a gun in their hands should or should not be shot by the police?
Of course not.
Why of course not? Why of course not?
Because that person's innocent.
Well, innocent is one thing. And no law enforcement.
It's not a threat, though, at that point.
There we go. Wait a minute. Police have no right to charge somebody with innocence or guilt. That's your court system. Does unarmed mean not dangerous?
Compared to what?
Does unarmed, the definition of being unarmed, does it mean not dangerous?
Sure, but does dangerous mean that you just shoot?
Well, I'm asking a question first because we got to get to there. Okay. We got to funnel down to there.
Then it does not.
Because we're going to solve your problem. You're obviously smaller than me, right?
Right.
Do you think that if I decided that I wanted to attack you and you're a cop, could you by yourself put me in handcuffs?
No.
Why not?
Because you're bigger than me.
Okay, but I'm unarmed.
So am I.
You're a cop.
You're a cop. You're a cop.
So if you're a cop and I'm me and I'm unarmed coming at you, am I dangerous or not?
Yes.
Okay. So now we agree we have to bridge the gap there. We have to bridge the gap between going all the way to deadly force and then an in between. The problem is going to lie into training. And the problem is going to also lie into the officer's perception. My number one criticism is fear. Now, no offense to anyone's age, but I'm 43, and when I was 21, I didn't have the same mindset as I did now. Today's day and age, you guys have parents, right? Do you want a 21-year-old, not woman, because boys, I think their brains, we do develop slower than women.
That's an old fact.
Do you want a 21-year-old male who just got out of the academy showing up to your parents' house trying to solve their problems?
No.
Okay, so now we have another problem. I think that in today's day and age, mentality and life experience play a factor. Now, you take a kid, you take a white north side or even suburban male who wants the prestige of that CPD badge. And he goes and he tests and he moves into the city and he's got a residency. And all of a sudden he goes to the academy and he's all gung-ho about being a cop. And I want to be a cop. And then daily, what do we do when we look at our Facebooks? We see that the media has shown us that young, urban, black America is nothing more than violence. That's what they are, violence. Now you got the perception. Now that's where I'm at. Now you're going to put me, where are they going to put it? South side, west side? Because it's kids have to have action.
Absolutely.
You got to give them training. Where do you think their mentality's at? Do you think as a white north suburban guy or white north side guy that if you put me in the west side or the south side, I'm going to have any common factor or relatability factors? So
what do you think about that, Marcus? You don't mind me? I want Marcus's opinion on this.
I want to hear where this is going, though. I got questions for you.
If I can't communicate with you by your language, by your dialect, by your culture, you ever hear that saying that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail?
Right.
Well, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to be afraid of you. And if I'm afraid of you, then I may go to my most deadly tool. And if I can act under the guise of, well, I was lawfully able to use it, because firearms, we don't shoot to kill in law enforcement. You shoot to terminate life-threatening behavior. So if you're walking at me and I shoot you and you stop and you fall to the ground, you surrender, I've terminated successfully the life-threatening behavior. But there's also other sides of it, because this can be talked about all day long. There is a reason why cops shoot 16 times, or they empty their magazine into somebody. And it's a biological and physical reason. Also a training reason. You have a grand array of things that a cop needs to go to, and it's called the use of force scale. And it could be your presence, could be your verbal commands, your hand control commands, all the way up to your firearms. But there's nowhere in the law that says I have to show up on scene and say, "Miss, I'm the police, stop." And then you keep coming. All right, miss, I'm the police. Now I said stop. And then you keep coming. Now I got to use my hands. It doesn't say escalate. I could show up on scene, not say a word, and shoot you, and be completely lawfully within that use of force scale. So it's dynamic, it's ever changing, and it's also emotional. Everybody wants a solid answer for art. And unfortunately, that's the easiest way to equate it.
Well, that kind of goes back to what we were saying in the other room. There is that there's a difference between facts and perception, right? And people's perceptions are kind of what they use for facts. So my question to you is, as sheriff, how can you change this perception, which is kind of a difficult thing to do? But what do you think? How would you be able to change people's perception from? Because I feel like people say Black Lives Matter, right? And then there's a connotation that because people say Black Lives Matter, they think that cops' lives don't matter. That's why they had this whole
Should all lives matter?
They do. They should, right? That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying there's that's why people came out and said, oh, well, blue lives matter. It's like, so if you're saying blue lives matter, are you saying that Black lives don't matter? And if you say Black lives matter, are you saying that blue lives don't matter? So how do you bridge this gap between the two? I understand that you're saying there is an animosity there, and there is lawfulness on that side, but how do you actually bridge the gap?
Accountability. So if I ran Black Lives Matter, or if I ran white Italian American Lives Matter, what I would do is I would say white Italian American Lives Matter, but I would go back to my group and say, this is where we're holding ourselves accountable. If I have Black Lives Matter, then I would say, I want this police brutality to stop, but now I'm going to go back to the Black community, and I'm also going to say, all right, we have to stop our contributions to this problem. Here's the problem right now, and I wanted to stay away from the name-calling politics, the slandering politics, and I won't go there. But the current sheriff, I've never met him. I have no problem with him as a person. He's got some amazing ideas, but they do not fit in the realm of law enforcement. You want to solve your police, this is how you solve them. You stop. We used the restaurant analogy before, and I use that so people understand. If I ran a restaurant, I have to be worried and focused on my staff, the food product I put out, my drink prices, the cleanliness of my restaurant. I can't be worried about what across the street is doing that's going to take away my business. I can't be worried that the Gap is across from me and they got a discount on jeans, or I got CarMax over there and their parking lot is drawing people. I have to worry about my product being the best to draw people in. As the sheriff or any law enforcement head, you have to be worried about your guys, your women, your officers. The current sheriff is not focused on the 7,000 men and women who work for him. He's not. He's worried about everything that's outside of the law enforcement agency. If you are running an agency of men and women, sworn and non-personnel, you have to make sure that they are the primary focus. Your sheriff doesn't drive the streets. Driving the streets, he doesn't service calls. He doesn't wind up walking a tier in the jail and working for them. And he doesn't serve in court. Your officers do. Your sworn and your non-sworn personnel do. When you don't focus on them and you focus on everything out, now you got problems running amok like crazy. He's not steering the ship. If you put the onus back on your officers, if I'm going to say blue lives matter, and they do, I think, me personally, I think that law enforcement is the best group of people on the planet because they consciously wake up every day and they go towards the danger and they wind up dealing with people who see them as thankless. But if I say that their lives matter more than anyone else, I'm also going to say, now you better step up to the plate and prove that. So you have to educate. We talked about age restrictions. I personally, and this is not meant to be something, these are my views, and I have no control over this, so I can't just arbitrarily say this. I don't think a cop should be a cop till he's 30. And I want more men and women staying in their 60s. I want that wisdom. I want that wisdom on the street.
An experience, right?
You can't buy that. You can't train that. It can only be experiential. I want the sheriff to be focused on everybody in the jail, everybody in the courts, everybody in the street. Because when you do, This is the training you need. This is the education you need. Well, why didn't you get the training? Why didn't you get the education? When that happens, you then create a baseline, a litmus test, a standard from where law enforcement should be across the nation to say, holy cow, this is what we should be acting like. And then when it comes down time to the public saying, well, you didn't do X, Y, and Z, or all lives matter, or whatever, or this is what your officers did, you now have a flat-based, concrete there's no argument where your officers stand, and they're either exonerated from what they did, or they're easier to get rid of. The problem is no law enforcement agency right now, they all focus on liability in the community and not what they're responsible for.
Let me ask a quick question.
Absolutely.
You know what? You said you've had some amazing things that you talked about, some amazing things that I think that should be implemented right now. What are 5 distinct differences between the incumbent and yourself? And what would you do differently to gain and get our vote? What would you?
I'll tell you the number one most difference between myself and him, which is paramount, and it's the difference between me and everyone else, any other candidate that's running, is number one, I'm not political. I've never run for an election before. I thought if I'm going to run for election, I'm going to knock it out of the park with the first try. Number two, I have a law enforcement background. I never rose willingly, above the ranks of that first responder. That was the most important, passionate thing to me. I've seen too many people get their stripes, go to staff and command school. All of a sudden they got bar clovers and whatever else on their collars, and they lost complete touch with who they were. And then it becomes policy, liability, lawsuits. And I'm going to tell you flat out, if you think for 1 second that law enforcement is not a business of how you screw your police officer over so that they will leave and you get new blood rotated in so you don't have to pay out a pension, you guys as youth have to start asking that. You need to go to your town, your village, your precinct, your municipality and say, how many cops have retired with pensions here? And I will bet you the number is so minute, because if you constantly keep that revolving door open, you get people who are willing to take orders, you get yes men, and less free thinkers who are aged, who know how to solve problems better. So that's a problem number one. My view, again, is that I'm no politician and I'm no manager. I'm not somebody who can come into the department and manage it. The department already has thousands of men and women who know how to manage Cook County far better than I do. But it's the job of the sheriff to lead them to be able to do so, not somebody with their ideas of, well, let's try to reinvent the wheel here. And unfortunately, that's what the current sheriff has been doing very unsuccessfully his last 2 terms.
You mentioned the fear between police and African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think one way to compensate for this is racial bias training?
Cultural, it's not racial, it's cultural. It's absolutely cultural. So I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the traffic stops where I've had a girl in her 20s crying hysterically. And I'm going, what is wrong? And this was right after the Mike Brown shooting. Mm-hmm. And it was because y'all kill black people. And I couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like,
that's what I said. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely not. I've had the kids in the back seats who've been scared, but I've also had the parents who are up front who are bad-mouthing cops while they're on a stop to the kids in the back. So it's culturally, it's a foundation based on what are the two influencing factors of when you grow up and you develop? It's either your family or society.
Correct.
It's the same thing in there. No, we don't need racial bias training. We need cultural training. I'm Italian. I speak this much Italian. I speak this much Spanish. I speak this much English. Would you stick me in a Middle Eastern or a Polish community to police? Would you assign me there? Would you assign me if I speak broken Italian and I speak semi-different?
No.
So why not?
You wouldn't be able to communicate well with them.
No, we don't need racial profile. We need more people from the community getting involved in the police department and vice versa, coming to the table, educating each other.
So the community almost police community, or byproduct of that community, or something.
Police of the public and the public of the police.
I like that.
I've asked several times. I had an event in Lansing. That's where we met.
Sure.
And I was one of 2 white people that were there. And I've never been treated better in my life by people who cared more, and people who actually, I've learned, and I said I walked away from that day. When I go petitioning door to door for signatures in my community, the Northwest suburbs, from the white community, I get, what are you going to do for me? From the black community, I get, what are you going to do from us? What are you going to do for us? There is such a difference in that same phrase being said differently. It's heartbreaking when you see, okay, we failed you. How have we failed you? But at the same time, too, I've asked, why is there not more black candidacy coming in for law enforcement? Why is there not more black leadership? The BBC interviewed me 2 years ago. It said, what do you think the difficulty is? And I said, well, I'm 43. I live in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. If I go to the south side, what is a 16-year-old black male who has no experience in me and I have no experience by him? How are we going to communicate? And then I'm a position of authority. I've got the star, I've got the badge, and I've got the weapons on my belt of seizure. I have the lawful authority to say, stop, and you better stop, or we're at war. Where's our relate factor? Where do we connect? Where's our common ground? I think it's law enforcement's job to come down to the level of perception for where we have more empathy and understanding of the public. But the public has to rise up to the fact to understand that there are certain things that law enforcement does that you just don't like, but they're still lawful to do. That's where that common ground has to be starting to come into place.
What do you think? What do you think? You have another, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
What's an example of something that the public doesn't like, but that's lawful?
Shooting unarmed people. Public hates it. Absolutely hates it.
And what's lawful about shooting someone that's unarmed?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll go back to that root question. I'll throw it to you every time. Does unarmed mean not dangerous? If I'm on top of her and she's up and I'm choking the life out of her, and she puts 5 rounds into my chest, but the camera starts right as my hands release, and all of a sudden they see her pump 5 rounds into me, you're going to get that. Now, do even worse, what if I'm black? Right. I'm 5'7", 210 pounds. I have a history of combative violence. I have no weapons on me, and she's about 1/10 of a second from losing consciousness. Can she lawfully shoot me?
Yes.
But I'm not armed.
No, but that's a different situation, though. So, I mean,
every situation is different.
It's a case-by-case basis for the most part.
Yes, every situation is different. The law never says you can just arbitrarily unshoot an unarmed person. There has to be an articulatable factor. You have to be. It's called reasonable. You have to be reasonable. So you can't just go up and walk up to somebody and say stop. Pow, 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 pow. No reasonable officer would ever do anything like that. You have to be able to articulate why that happened.
Go ahead.
And unarmed doesn't mean not dangerous. I agree with that. But I think where the issue arises is that unarmed doesn't mean not dangerous, but it doesn't mean that you have to kill the person. So why can't you take other action steps other than shooting them? You don't. You know what? Unfortunately, there's not one person I know in law enforcement personally that is so precise with their round placement that they can kill someone instantly. The best shot to put somebody, to kill someone is to put it right between their eyes and sever their spinal cord from their brain, instantaneous death. You look at shootings in Chicago, you're talking about the bullet caliber. You're talking about the number of rounds that hit that person. You're talking about the blood loss. You're talking about how many layers that person is actually wearing. Is a 9mm going to penetrate 2, 3, 4 jackets in the middle of winter? Did they die there on scene? Did they die 3, 4 days later in the hospital? It's done to terminate life-threatening behavior. So you want to stop that threatening behavior. And until we come up with, hey, Scotty, set phasers for stun, until that happens, you're not going to, and trust me, there's some kid inventing that in his basement right now somewhere in the world.
Is that a Star Trek reference?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our generation. You said Scotty.
Yeah, tasers are not foolproof. It's people skills, it's training, bless you, it's confidence level, and then it's ultimately a tool. I tell people this all the time too. One of the worst things that ever happened in law enforcement was a college education. I have no college. None. I was a bartender. And if you come into my bar, because we talked about this before, and you're on a date with a woman and I treat you like garbage and I embarrass you in front of her, are you going to tip me?
Right.
But if I come in there and I subserve myself to you, you are the boss and I'm treating you like gold and I'm making you look amazing in front of her, you going to take care of me knowing that the next time you come in there, I'm going to do the same thing?
Right, for sure.
So as a cop, and we talked about this a little bit with state troopers yesterday,
sure.
If I walk up to the car and go, give me your license. Am I really initiating a good conversation with you? State troopers are the other way around. They're uber professional. They will cite you chapter and verse while they pull you over. I like the middle ground. Hey, how are you? So, I'm Officer Izzo with so-and-so police department. Look, you got a heavy foot. You blew through that stop sign today. I know you probably didn't mean to do it. You got your license on you? All right, give me about 2-3 minutes. I'm probably going to write you a written warning and get you out of here. It's people skills. It disarms you. While I'm disarming you, I'm going to do my job and you're going to go home good.
How can what you just said spoke volumes to me. I mean, I love it. I love it. The people skills. How can you, as the next sheriff of Cook County, implement something like that to whereas people would have those people skills, or you can teach people from the northwest side or the north side of Chicago, working in Inglewood, working in let's say Woodlawn, what can you do to teach? I mean, what would you implement to teach them those people skills so public perception of police officers would dwindle down? I mean, people will believe in police more.
It goes back to that education. It goes back to putting more focus on your police. I obviously can't say, okay, here's an Asian neighborhood. I need 2,000 Asian officers to step forward and come and test and hire because you speak the language. I can't say that.
Sure.
You're going to get people who want to be cops and people who don't want to be cops. It all boils down to a pressuring, a demanding system of being a sheriff or a chief of police for a town saying there is no ifs, ands, or buts. We're going to back you and give you every tool you need. You need to be sent to a Spanish class? I'm going to send you to a Spanish class. No ifs, ands, or buts. You need this, you need that. I will send you to this. But if I find out that there's a complaint on you that has valid warrant and you were given all the training, all the education, everything you needed, and you still didn't follow through with what you're supposed to need to do, you bet your ass I'm going to find a way to get rid of you a lot easier. Pardon me. It shouldn't be an FCC violation. I'm going to find a way to get rid of you.
You're okay. You're okay.
I'm going to find a way to get rid of you, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you take care, and this is just my view, everyone knows it's hard to find a job. Everyone knows that working for a boss that actually cares about you, it doesn't exist anymore. If you create an environment.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Time out.
For the most part.
Chantel?
For the most part.
I think it still exists. I gotta be honest with you. Maybe one lucky guy.
If you focus on taking care of those you're supposed to take care of, like I said, the sheriff isn't out there policing. He's not out there in jail. So you have to make sure that the men and women who serve under him are taking care of those citizens to the absolute best representation of what he would want, period. And if you don't do it, it's either falls on one of two problems. Either I didn't give you the training you needed and the education you needed or the opportunity you needed, or you willingly didn't do it. And if you willingly didn't do it, we have a problem.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna change it. I want to change it up a little bit because you're moving me right now, man. You're speaking my language, and do you got any things coming up? And I'll let you go. CG, I'll let you get back in the building. Do you have any events coming up, or how can people get behind you? How can people make donations? What can I do to help you?
I'm going to tell you flat out too, and I will call people out. So I'm going to tell you, this is what we talked about, the political process. You guys, youth, and part of this. I'm an independent. Now, I have no problem. I do not believe in not burning bridges. I am my own worst enemy. I went to run as a Republican because there were too many Democrats running for this election. And I didn't align as much with Democrat values as I did with the Republicans, just in the sense for what law enforcement was. So I picked a side. So in order to run it and to get to the primary, which happened in March, we needed 3,282 signatures to get on the ballot. Okay, so keep this in mind because you want to get involved in politics. I was the only announced Republican candidate for sheriff. I was told by several high-up members in the Republican Party, we don't endorse a Republican candidate for sheriff because we don't think it's a position we can win, and we don't want to encourage more Democrats to come out to vote. Okay, this is your politics. So I said I'm going to run anyways. Okay, well, if you do run, just we're gonna petition to get you knocked off the ballot. Okay, I'm gonna run as an independent. Now remember that 3,282 signatures? Mm-hmm. To run as an independent, you need 25,000. You think that's fair?
Wow.
I don't think it's fair. They have to be submitted by June 25th this month. Now, getting people to vote is a whole hell of a lot easier to get people to volunteer for signatures. It is amazing. The number one problem we have run into in our campaign, anybody wants to find us can find Izzo for Sheriff on Facebook or go to izzo2018.us. The number one problem we have found is people believe in the idealism. Oh my gosh, I believe in you. I love what you're saying. How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? All right, here's where you can go. Help. Well, Chicago's not going to let you win anyways. People are inherently lazy. And this is another thing I found. For me personally, this political race has been one of the most profound learning experiences of my life. When I go door to door in Hoffman Estates, I'll knock on doors and I can get 30 signatures in an hour because people want to talk to me for X amount. They want to talk. I went to Englewood 2 weeks ago. Driving downtown, I said, I typed up most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago. Englewood was number one. I'm going. 11 o'clock in the morning, I went door to door. I got 50 signatures in 40 minutes. But there's a problem with that. Number one, for me emotionally, it sucked because I saw the literal pain in people's eyes of, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to stop the violence? What are you going to do to stop the shootings? What are you going to do to stop this? And you have to have an answer. And then the other side of it is they didn't care that I was running or who I was. It's just the fact that I was running. They flat out said, "You are white. You don't belong in this neighborhood. You're crazy. You come down here. You have our support." And I said, "Don't you want to know anything about me?" "No, you're here to help us." And they started calling people downstairs. "Oh, you got to come sign this guy's stuff." Everybody wanted to get involved. So the pain equals action.
I like that.
And that's something that bothers the heck out of me.
Let me ask you another question. And when you got those 40 signatures within an hour,
50,
less,
50 plus,
excuse me,
50 plus.
50 plus signatures in an hour or less. Tell me, was it boys? What was the breakdown?
More women got involved. More women got involved. And they called to whoever male was in the house, "Come here, you got to do this." And the women's were the ones who grilled me. They were the ones standing with their arm folded. "I'm 2 inches from my face. What are you going to do? What's this?" Well, I have an answer. And what impressed me the most about it is most of them would only talk after they heard I talked to determine whether or not I was full of garbage. So it was, "We're going to listen to you first." And it was just like that in Lansing. "Going to listen. Now that I know that you're not full of it, now I'm going to talk to you."
You walk it like you talk it. And that's what impressed me so much. And that's what impressed me so much when we were in Lansing. When we first connected on Lansing, I'm like, "Dude, who's this guy over here?" And I came over and chatted with you. Walked by a couple of times before a colleague and I, Jessica Grover, and I actually we engaged. But the reality here is you possess something that I think can break down all barriers, whether it's culturally, from a gender perspective, and I think you're the kind of guy that can transcend the youth and older folk, and you can identify and talk to everybody. I like what I'm hearing, and I'm gonna bounce the ball over to Chuba because Chuba's sitting there, and I think you got any questions over there, Chuba?
I want to give it back to Gabby.
Kaylee.
Sorry.
Gabby, you want to give it back to Kaylee? Kaylee?
We were thinking of questions earlier, and
nothing's off the table.
I got a question for you, real quick, if you don't mind. This, because there's a lot of problems that come. Obviously, racial discrimination is a huge problem in the police force.
So I'm going to ask you because I'll answer anything. I'll answer everything, absolutely, obviously. But define racial discrimination for me.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about racial discrimination.
Okay.
I'm trying to move on to another big problem I see in.
Well, the only reason I brought that up is because you would open the question up with obviously we have a problem with racial discrimination in the police.
Or we were just talking about race for like half an hour, right? So there is an issue with on both sides or whatever, right? With race, but I think mental health is also a pretty prominent issue because when you're coming across someone that's clearly mentally unstable, do you treat them the same as someone that is mentally stable, and how do you decide what to do with that?
That is such a dynamic problem because it has gone medication and nutritional in the last several years. There's been a study that shows that in 1904 we consumed 2 pounds average 2 pounds of sugar per person per year. That's 1904. Today, it's up to about 120 pounds of sugar per person per year. And you know the effects of sugar on the body, right?
Absolutely.
Sugar's in everything. And now you got kids, and I'm gonna speed this up as much as possible. So you got kids growing up malnutritioned, all these preservatives in their food. It absolutely 100% attributes to mental health issues, prescription, opioid addiction crisis. What are the telltale signs? Give me black and white, concrete evidence in the moment, instantaneously, of if I'm a mentally health person that's got an issue or doesn't have an issue. Can you identify anything on me that could or couldn't?
It's almost impossible.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Now you're asking police officers. Now training is something. I've had mental health training, and from excited delirium to talking people down off of killing themselves. It is almost virtually impossible to identify somebody having a mental health issue unless it's glaring, unless you're looking at somebody who's on, Michigan Avenue at 2:00 in the morning, picking up the trash cans, throwing it up and over and going through it. Are they hungry? Are they mentally unstable? So I don't know that.
They could be both sometimes.
They could be absolutely both. Now you're asking for what is now the new problem in our society. We haven't, as a culture, we haven't figured out what to do with these people after we get them into custody. So here's the public wants. I want to know what we're going to do with them, and I want the police. How do I say this? You're asking for too much solution without enough education right now, and we have to get there. That has to get. I'm not unempathetic to it, but the other problem is now you're looking at a loophole that everybody can get themselves out of. Why did you shoot him? He had mental health issues. Why did you shoot him? Mental health issues. Now you're taking away from the people who actually need this care, and you're blanketing it everywhere. So it's dynamic like everything else. And it's a problem that I don't have an immediate answer for you now. Hopefully in time, we're going to have a better answer for that.
Just asking, like, and also just wondering if that's kind of like on the forefront of your mind were you to get elected. Would you be trying to implement policies, like you said, in training and things like that would help with that?
But forget the policies and training. How about the allocation of dollars where they should go?
Or that.
Do you guys agree that you guys agree with the fact that innocent until proven guilty is our way of life?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's something you guys may not know because we're talking about politics, and I didn't know this either. I spent too much time focusing on my career and not as a taxpayer. I'm a Cook County taxpayer. Everybody in that building, for the most part, at 26 in California, is innocent until proven guilty. Okay, you can go and murder your wife tonight, and you're innocent until the courts prove that you're guilty. I want to know why Sheriff Tom Dart and even Tony Preckwinkle, the president, allows that we have corrective behavior programs in the jail. Why are we paying for a tilapia farm? Why are we paying for yoga lessons? Why are we paying for a chicken coop? Why are we paying for acupuncture? And every one of these programs has to have ahead of that. When Tom Dart first got in office, he had 3 directors. When Pat Quinn didn't get reelected and Anita Alvarez lost her election, now all those people needed jobs. We are paying for nearly 300 directors in the Cook County Jail, easily over $105,000 salary a year. You have a director of lobbies, a director of, like everything I said, acupuncture, yoga lessons, all this stuff. If these people are innocent until proven guilty, why is all that money going into these programs in the county instead of back into the community to prevent them from going to jail in the first place? And then why are these people who are, if they want mental health treatment, why are we catering to these Xbox play and whatever food they want in the jail when you know these people who can't get the treatment they need outside need that treatment?
Are struggling, right?
So if you explain to me that's why you need to strip this stuff away. The sheriff does not need to concern himself with these parts. He needs to sit there and say, get this money out of my jail. I want a well-staffed county agency. I want a well-equipped county agency, and I want to be able to do the jobs that are within what I'm responsible for, the courts, the jail, and the streets. If it's mental health, I want more that should be the board, Cook County Board, and that should also be City of Chicago, should have that money sent right back to them saying, we need to solve this problem with mental health and stop sending them to jail. So stop sending them to a holding facility of where they're not getting what they need done.
Right.
They're being neglected. Stop arresting people for weed. Stop arresting people for you find and I did it for years. You find somebody slumped over in their car with a needle in their arm. All right, you're going to jail. Why? Okay, let's look at it. Where's the victim?
He's the victim. He or she is.
Okay, he's the victim.
They're inflicting pain upon themselves.
Why am I arresting somebody, towing their car, throwing them to jail? Now they're going to be going through withdrawals in jail. If they had a job, they just lost it because they're going to be sitting for 2 weeks because they can't bond out. Now their car is going to be sitting in an impound, accumulating fees for 2 weeks that they can't pay for.
That they can't pay for anyway.
What are you going to do? They're going to go,
so you're creating.
I give up. Now you're creating criminals.
There you go.
We're not helping anybody. But on the other end of that spectrum, don't think I'm a doormat, because the actual criminals, theft, and I hate the word sexual assault. It should be rape. Because if you put less connotation on what the word is, you dumb it down. It needs to be more violent. Murders, batteries, the things that actually matter, you should be sitting, and you should be absolutely not punished, because the Cook County Sheriff cannot punish, but you should be kept within whatever legal parameters the state of Illinois says so, period. And that's it. Nothing outside of those laws. You should be made to be uncomfortable until your time in court.
Kaylee?
Would you say that mental health issues is a problem amongst police officers too, in addition to community members? Because you're in stressful situations oftentimes. So would you say that police officers struggle from PTSD, and that leads to being put in situations where they react in a manner that might not be necessary?
Every pursuit I've ever been in, you get that adrenaline dump. Your legs start shaking. An adrenaline dump is all of a sudden my blood rushes to my vital organs to protect those. And I'm driving. When I'm driving, I'm sorry. My foot is shaking on the gas because I'm so pissed and I'm so angry. And this guy's just done whatever. And that's in that moment. And when I get out of that car, maybe I crank those handcuffs a little bit too tight. Maybe I would jam down in his shoulder blades when I put him in handcuffs because I'm emotionally pissed. That's in that moment. Can you imagine a culmination of those things? You go to the same domestic's house 10 times in the last 6 months because she just won't leave and she calls the police every time. And I got to walk in and say, what are you calling for? Okay, I get it.
You already know.
He slapped you around. What are you going to do about it? Why do I have to clean up your mess? Yes, these things put up a burden on cops. And there's things that I think that should be done. You look at certain, these are just minor things. I believe that if you gave cops more in their personal time, and again, this goes back to giving them more so you could take more, you can have a better handle on that. There's a town I know in the suburbs that rotates their police officers every 28 days. Meaning,
not just from a shift,
no,
but you're talking about
from a shift, which means you work 3 to 11s, 128 days, then 7 to 3s, and then 3 to 11, 7 to 3.
Would that be the same beat? Is that the same area?
Same town.
Okay.
Do you want a cop showing up to your house that has personal problems with their family life? Maybe they got an argument and they didn't get enough sleep from their last shift. They work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for the last month, and now they had 1 day off, and now they got to go back to work at 7 in the morning to work at 3 in the afternoon. You want that?
No, absolutely.
No, I don't want that. We abuse our cops more than anybody knows. Mental health and personal side, yes. All of us had sick humor. We joke about things. And if you don't joke about things, you don't have that venting out. We don't want to pretend that we're tough. And there's tasteful ways of doing it. And I tell people all the time, you know what? If you see cops joking over something that's distasteful to you, let them do it because you weren't there. Maybe you didn't see what led up to that. And maybe it's not your 4th dead body, this week, and you got to see a dead kid and this, that. You're seeing people to repeatedly go back to this line of work, seeing some of the most horrible things on the planet, worse than what doctors see, worse than what nurses see, because they're seeing it in their live conditions. You guys don't know what it's like to see, a toddler living in, I can't say it, garbage and filth and feces, and mom is out drinking around the corner and dad's nowhere's around, and you got the toddler being taken care of by an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old sexually abused by somebody. These are things that make you want to do what you can't do. You want to grab the throat of whoever you can, but we don't institute innocent or guilt. So you're asking a cop to hold back 100% and say, I have to do the right thing. It is such a burden. It's the biggest burden to carry, knowing that you cannot take instant justice on somebody who deserves it. And then you may watch them walk away in court. So there's a massive level of emotion on there. I think truly, in my opinion, you need to give cops more time with their families. You need to have that taboo of therapy needs to go away. It needs to go away. I talk. That's what I do. I'm Italian and I'm emotional. I talk my problems out. I don't think that this job specifically as a police officer, you shouldn't have, and this is just me, with the sheriff's department, you have 7,000 men and women. I want to be able to manipulate their schedule so everyone gets what they want. A common schedule now is 12-hour shifts, 3 on, 3 off, or 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off, so that you have every other weekend off. I want cops spending more time with their friends, more time with their families, because when they see what is more valuable, they know what they're going to lose and why they should do a better job of their job and behave themselves more too. You have to give the cops more so that they know I better do what I need to do, so I don't want this taken away. I hope that in part answers your question too. Yeah. It's too dynamic. You can't. Yeah, mental health. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to some crime scene or some death scene, and then you walk away and you're like, yeah, that's great. You're high-fiving your buddy, and then you're crying on the way home. But then you go home and you look at your girlfriend, you start talking about it, and she goes, "Well, you're the one who chose this job." Okay, who's gonna relate to me? So you're asking your cops to bear a massive burden, and it doesn't help when everybody on social media says F the police and I want my cops to do more. What more are you doing for me? You know what? You have no idea what they're doing for you. You have no clue what they're doing for you. And yes, there are a good majority of cops who should never be cops. And I look and I go, how did you pass psychological? And then there's the other side of them who just, they're I'm like, oh my God, how did you pass psychological? How are you still holding it together? So it's very dynamic.
Well, I myself, I like your perception.
It's my reality. Thank you.
And I like your reality. Well, perception is reality.
It is.
For my generation, perception is reality. Perception is reality. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming out today.
Thank you for having me.
And more importantly, thank you for, pardon the pun, my firing squad. We put you in front of our firing squad at Scene Chicago TV. We asked some tough questions. You gave amazing answers.
It's the truth. And the problem is I'm not going to give you an answer that's going to not offend the Black community and it's going to cater to the police community, so I get both your votes.
Right.
I'm going to tell you flat out,
Right.
and this is my personal opinion. Now, I'm Christian, and I tell people all the time, I have my Christian values, and blah, blah, blah. And they may not align with some other religious values, but I can't say, you're Islamic, I'm not serving you. Can't do that. I have to be willing to say, and people ask me all the time, I say, I will never lie to you with an answer that gives you a taste of, good taste in your mouth. So when you walk away, you're like, yeah, I want you going, I don't agree with what he says, but he's never going to lie to me. Mm. And this way you'll know that I'll always work and I'll give an answer for you. So I'm not going to pander.
I
think I was talking too much.
No. We need that, man. I'm gonna ask you one last question. One elected in November. What's the first thing you want to implement?
First thing we're doing, and I have this written online, is we are putting the entire Cook County Sheriff's Department on lockdown. I don't know if you guys have seen, I think it's an average of 33% of your officers that you pay for. Is what you pay for. That's why you could be concerned. 33% of your pay officers are out on injury relief. Inmates are running the asylum. Tom Dart has no control over that jail. And it is completely out of control. It is going on lockdown. It's going to be operated by Illinois jail standards, which means I don't care what tier you're on. If you are only allowed or allocated 1 hour out of your cell a day, that's what you're getting until the officers are in full control. We're doing a press conference. We're going to let every single city of Chicago and every municipality know in the whole county that the Sheriff's Department is going to absolutely beef up its numbers and make itself available for you. What we can't do, City of Chicago is the only city, Cook County is the only county in the nation where the city police seem to outrank the county sheriff. It happens nowhere else in the nation. And we can't just come up and say, we're the county sheriff, we're taking the county back. But what we can do is say, we're the county sheriff. You need more manpower. You need more training. You need more availability. We are here to play a support role to you. You will see a massive fluctuation of new county squad cars on your street. You're going to see a massive presence. You're going to see a lot more sheriffs out there, and you're going to see them working in a supportive role with every agency in our county, because we're going to get the whole county, all of Cook County, back under control.
I like that. Mr. Paul?
You answered a lot of my questions, so I think that pretty much sums it up for me. I mean, yeah.
Kaylee?
I'm good. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm all set.
Yeah.
Chantel? Well, I'm going to tell you. I mean, come November. I asked already. What can I do what can I personally do to help out? Do you got any events coming up?
We have to spread the word. We're in a signature crisis right now, and I'm going to tell you flat out. If we get the signatures and get challenged getting off the ballot, we're still running as a write-in. If we don't get the signatures and we don't get on the ballot, we're still running as a write-in. We're going to get a ballot, and I'm going to be putting out massive information about how you absolutely go through the steps and process of writing our name in.
Sure.
A southern candidate did that in a southern state. She needed 10,000 votes as a write-in to win. She did a commercial, told people step by step how to write her name in, and she won the election.
How many votes do you need, or how many signatures do you need to get on the ballot?
Minimum 25,000.
25,000.
Minimum.
Where are we at now?
We're not disclosing that number, but we're not there. We're not there. And if we need double that, conservatively double that. Mm-hmm. And it is easier to get people to come out to vote than get people to come out there and get signatures. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you could talk to, because we got a pretty decent audience out here. What's one thing? What's the last thing? What's something you want to? What's the? Start over. What you talking about, Willis? All right, check it out. So, in parting? What would you like to leave on the minds of voters in Cook County that tune into our radio show, and what would you like to leave?
That I'm doing the exact thing we talked about as if I was running Black Lives Matter. Is I'm telling the public to say, yes, I want the public coming to the table and saying, we're going to stop shooting each other. We're going to stop doing this. We're going to stop doing that. I have no control over what the public is going to do. But when it's elected, you elect me and put me in a position to control what I am capable of controlling, which is the county sheriff. Mm-hmm. So that I want to start that base. I want to create it to where the Cook County Sheriff's Department is looked at across the nation as the law enforcement agency to have the standard after.
I like that.
It's going to be period. All right, this is what I'm saying for you. If I'm saying, all right, I want public stop shooting each other, stop robbing each other, stop raping each other, great. I am going to go back to my people first. I'm going to say, this is what you will do. Educate yourself. You will learn what your job is. You will remind yourself that you are part of the public. You work for the public, and the public could take away that build and that authority anytime they want.
I like that, man. So first of all, Chicago, I want to say thanks for everybody tuning in. I want to give a mad shout out to iHeartRadio, Intellectual Radio, the lovely Ramona in my chocolate zone, and the big boys overseeing Chicago TV.
Big boys.
Marcus Paul.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being part of this panel.
That was fun.
Kaylee Griffin. Love having you here today. We got to play co-host again. We got to figure that out because we Batman and Robin, or well, I don't know, Batman, one Batman, Batgirl. I don't know. Chantel Chuba, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Listen, young man,
Sir,
you've had an amazing impact on me, and I'm sure on a lot of our viewers and people who are following us up.
hope so.
And I want to say thank you for coming out. Let me know what I can do to help, and
Spread the word.
I will continue to spread the word. And everybody in the city of Chicago knows, imparting. Hey, Wanda, how do I end my show? King Kong ain't got nothing on me. It's a wrap, Chicago. Thanks for joining on the thing with DL. Tune in next Monday, 4 o'clock, same bad time, same bad station. Talk to you, Chicago. Thank you.
There we go.
It's a wrap.
The train day?
Hey, it's coincidental, man. That's my